What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a hoot and a holler, a true banger of a video. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Listen, we're about to hit 800k subs. Smash the sub button, ladies and gentlemen. Join the club. Get notified when I post. You know the drill. And also, follow me on Instagram at @TheGBLN. Listen, I'm going to follow some people back. I am shadow banned, and they shadow banned me right before I hit 100K. So please help me hit 100K and smash that follow. I'm going to follow some people back. We're going to post some giveaways on Instagram. We do a lot of fun stuff on there. So don't miss the action and follow me. Also, check out my new brand, Only Gas. You know the drill. You know where to find it. We don't sell t-shirts, baby. You can guess what we sell. Hey, without further ado, let's dive right into the video. Now, in today's video, we're talking about a very fun and also somewhat recent story. This is from my post-Coke Chronicles era, right in the beginning of 2020, when I first got kicked out of my mom's house and moved out on my own and was living in a very questionable neighborhood. Now, today's particular video is about a substance that I don't have any other stories about because it's a benzo, but it's not Xans and it's not K-pins. This is the one and only time where I had some experience with Etizolam, which is a substance that many of you watching this probably have heard of, but many of you watching this also probably have not. Now, I'm not going to spend the time to give a detailed breakdown on what Etizolam is because Google exists and it's smarter than I am, but is that this was a very memorable experience with some people that I barely knew. So I hope you enjoy, and let's dive into it. Now listen, this took place, like I said earlier, in the beginning of 2020, and this was a very weird period in my life. You see, I had just moved out of my hometown because I'd gotten kicked out of my mom's house, and I moved far further south in Illinois to a place that I could afford on my own. And the place I moved to, I feel comfortable saying now because I don't live there anymore, I moved to Springfield, Illinois. Now listen, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you probably have no idea what this place is like, and looking at it on a map, it doesn't really give you a fantastic idea. This is one of the most interesting towns I've ever been to because the populace is very divided. You see, this town is the capital of Illinois, so you have the governor and you have a lot of politicians and big fancy government buildings surrounded by dirt and absolutely nothing. Honestly, it reminded me of Detroit. They have like the nice built up, city buildings, and then everything else is just absolutely derelict. And Detroit 10 years ago, nowadays they fixed it up. Detroit's pretty nice nowadays. I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago. It was a little rough over there, dude, but Springfield is rough, and essentially there's one little pocket of the town where all the wealthy, well-off people live, and then everybody else is just struggling. And if you drive through the town, you would understand, it's bad. It is bad. It is a rough place. One of the highest property crime rates in the state. It's rough, okay? So I had moved down here, and at this point, I'd only lived in this town for a couple months, so I was trying to make some new friends, and what I was quickly realizing was a lot of the people that lived in this town were nothing like me. I grew up very differently than these people. It's a different lifestyle living in rural Illinois and kind of bumfuck nowhere. The town's not necessarily rural, but, there's 100,000 people in it, but you're surrounded by nothing, and there's no opportunity really there unless you work for the government or the hospital. There's nothing to really do except, I don't know, walk around the woods and smoke meth. There's really not a lot of activity there. So it was a really stark contrast from what I grew up around and what I was used to. So honestly, I kind of had a hard time making friends, and I rotated out a lot of people at this point. I was just trying to get to know everybody I could to see if I could, really make a friend, get to know anybody. And the answer, unfortunately, is that I made very few friends during my time down here because people were just different, man. I don't even know how to describe it, honestly. I think it's like if a North Korean dude moved to, fucking Houston, if you just took a North Korean dude and plopped him in Houston tomorrow, I don't know how many friends he's gonna make. It's gonna be a little tough. That's how I felt, all right? I was a North Korean guy in Houston, Texas, and I was having a hard time. Now, one person that I did meet and luckily got along with pretty well is a dude that we're going to refer to as Steve. Now, Steve was a guy that I met at a function. It was one of those things where I was with a girl and I got invited over to hang out at some crib, and I went over there and I bumped into this guy and we got off pretty well. One of those things where it was going to end one of two ways. Either A, I got his number and then we never spoke again, or B, I got his number and then bought drugs off him a couple times and then never spoke to him again. And the latter's what ended up happening. So the day I had met Steve, we were chatting a little bit, and I was telling him about where I was from and the stuff I was into, and it turned out that we had a very similar common interest in drugs. We were very into all the drugs, everything under the sun. We were having a good chat about coke, psychedelics, everything. It seemed like we really hit it off well. So I got his number, and I was like, hey, hit me up sometime. I don't got any friends down here. Let's sesh. He was a very cool dude. He was like, bet. I got you. Honestly, the only reason me and this dude stopped kicking it is because he moved away, which was very unfortunate. This guy moved like literally a month after I met him. I hit him up one day and he's just like, oh yeah, I live in Missouri. Like, oh, all right, thanks, dude. For sure. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. So on this particular day, I had hit him up and I was like, yo, you should come through to my crib. Let's have a sesh. Now, this wasn't the first time that we'd hung out together outside of when we'd met. We'd smoked together once or twice leading up to this point, so it wasn't really unusual for me to just bang his line and be like, hey, come sesh. And he was like, bet, I'm gonna bring some stuff over. I just picked up some weed. So I was pretty excited. I'm like, all right. We got the homie coming over. He's bringing some weed. And then he texts me maybe 20 minutes after I hit him up, and he's like, yo, I got some other shit. Do you want me to bring it? And I'm like, what do you mean some other shit? And he sends me a picture, and it's just a plastic bag with gummy bears in it. And I'm like, bro, all right. What is that, dude? Listen, I've had experience with gummy bears before, okay? Back in high school, I bought some quote-unquote Xanax gummy bears from a chick. And these were very, very similar. However, these weren't Xanax gummy bears. These were different benzo gummy bears, according to him. He told me that these were Etizolam gummies. Now, at this point in my life, I knew what Etizolam was, but honestly, I didn't really know well enough to decide whether or not I was going to take it. So I remember I hopped on Google, bro. I was like, wait, what is Etizolam again? Like, I've heard of it, but what, like, I got to re-up on the knowledge, So I hopped on Google. I'm reading that shit. I'm like, oh, all right, I'll try that. Hey, as soon as I read the description, I was like, all right, dude, hey, I'll give it a go. Listen, don't be like me. Don't read drug descriptions on the internet and just take them. But me, you have to understand, I had no sell. I didn't care. You could offer me a hit of monkey nuts and it would have got me high. I probably would have taken it at this point in my life. So I was down. I looked it up just to, refresh my memory. I was like, bet, come on over. Now, listen, after he comes through, it gets a little more blurry, all right? It gets a little more like vague. So I'm going to give my best description possible out of my memory. So he ended up coming over. Steve ended up coming over. And at first we're just vibing out and we're seshing. We smoke a little bit of weed. That's how it always gets going. We're chatting it up. I'm like, hey, what you been on? He's telling me about work. He had a job and everything. He worked at a smoke shop. So it was one of those things where, like, he didn't really do shit at work. Like, this guy wasn't stressing like, oh, man, I got a long work day tomorrow. Dude, we all know smoke shop employees do absolute fuck all right? Listen, I know enough to know that. Listen, there's probably a few smoke shop employees watching this right now. You know damn well you do nothing. You know damn well you do nothing. Don't even pretend, all right? And he fucking loved it, dude. He would always tell me, he's like, dude, you should work at a smoke shop, Like, you should fucking check this out. And I was always like, yeah, hey, I probably will work at a smoke shop. I'll tell you what, dude, with the rate this YouTube shit is going, bro, they're taking away my ad revenue at this point. I was broke. I was like, I probably will take you up on that pretty soon here, Hey, questionable period in my life. But we smoked up. We had a little bit of sesh. We're taking some bong rips. And then he busts out the gummy bears. Now, I started asking him, I'm like, yo, do you take these a lot? Like, what's the deal? What's the spill? And I'm asking him, I'm like, how are these going to hit me differently from the Xanax gummies? And the way he described it to me is he told me happy Xans. That's all he told me. He was just like, listen, they're happy Xans. And I didn't really understand what he meant by that. I was like, okay, well, happy Xans, but like, Xans already, like, they wash away your worries. Like, I wouldn't say they make me happy, but like, I'm pretty, I guess, objectively, I'm happy on the Xans. Like, what do you mean a fucking happy Xan? I was really intrigued by this. So I grabbed 2 of these gummy bears, and I fucking downed them down the hatch. And I asked him, I'm like, how much should I take? He's like, you've taken Xans before, right? And I'm like, hey, my boy, I'd take Xans right now if you had some for me. And he's like, all right, take 2 of them bitches. Bet, I'm locked in. So I take 2 of them bitches. Listen, I don't really know how to describe what this tasted like because it actually didn't taste like Xanax. Xanax, the alprazolam has a very distinct taste. It is bitter in a chemical, disgusting, rancid way that makes me almost instantly gag. But these tasted different, and I'm not sure if this is what Etizolam normally tastes like or not. This is my only knowing experience with this substance. Granted, there's hella fake Xans with all sorts of different benzos and derivatives in there, so I've probably unknowingly done a tease quite a few times. But this was the only time where I was upfront told that I was taking it, and it tasted really... The best way I can describe it is poverty candy. It tasted like poverty candy. Granted, maybe the gummy bear contributed a little bit, but... it was just like an old, expired sweetness. It tasted like the preservatives in the gummy bear had just seeped out of it and expired and died. It wasn't bad per se, but it certainly wasn't good. And it was a flavor where I could tell I wasn't just tasting a gummy bear. Like, I've had some old gummy bears. These were not old. They weren't hard. They felt soft. It was just a strange flavor. And then I got this coating in my mouth. And it was very it was like a dry almost coating. I got cotton mouth from these almost, and it was really strange. I don't know if that's normal when you're doing Etizolam liquid. I don't really know, but I got cotton mouth from these things almost. And I remember I took it down the hatch, and I was very displeased with the oral experience. I was like, dude, honestly, I would have rather just had a Xan in my mouth than that, because I was I looked at the gummy bear, I was expecting a fun time, and I didn't get a fun time, so I was very disappointed. However, after we took these gummy bears, a little bit of time goes by, and maybe 10, 15 minutes goes by, and this kind of blew me. Listen, we weren't that good of friends yet, so I get it. I don't know his personal situation, but out of nowhere, this guy just fucking up and has to go. This dude just fucking dips. Steve checks his phone, and I remember he left very urgently. It seemed like, I don't know, maybe his girl was mad at him, maybe she found the fucking stash. I don't know, listen. Every guy has the stash, all right? She might have found the nut rags, okay? So we had to race home, deal with that. You never know, bro. I mean, hey, he had to dip for something more urgent than me. That's all I know. But he got the fuck up out of there. And I'm sitting there like, wait a minute, dude. This guy just drugged me and left. Like, this guy just fed me Etizolam, charged me no money, and just fucking dipped. And he took some gummy bears with me and then just got in his car and drove away. Just left. I was like, all right, I wasn't going to sit there and be like, no, you should stay longer. No, don't leave. We didn't know each other well enough like that. That would come off terrifying. So I was just like, all right, man, I'll see you around, I guess. And I did kick it with him a few more times after this as well. And then he just vanished to Missouri, but we'll talk about that later. Either way, so he dips out, and now I'm just sitting here in my living room like, well, I'm home alone and I'm fucking lit. And I don't really remember how much time went by, but I do remember the feeling. I remember the onset of this. It was almost like out of nowhere. 1 second, I was feeling pretty normal, maybe a little loose. And then all of a sudden, I just felt really, really lightheaded. And I felt really, really happy. And I just felt lit. Honest to God, I understand what he meant by happy Xan as soon as it hit me, because it felt like Molly a little bit in a strange way. I was really euphoric, but not in the way where I wanted to listen to music or socialize or anything. I was just very happy. I was just content. I was smiling. However, that wasn't the only thing I felt, because I also had this really, really strange, body feeling. It wasn't like I felt heavy or anything, or I felt super pressed to the couch or anything like that, but I just felt this slight almost tingling in my veins, this slight almost displacement of my balance, where my body just didn't feel normal anymore. I felt like one side of me was heavier than the other. I felt like I was the Leaning Tower of Pisa, dude. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting on my couch with a shit-eating grin on my face. I'm like, hey, this ain't too shabby. Hey, happy Xans? This ain't half bad, However, I will say I was pretty underwhelmed by these. Maybe these were low-dose gummy bears and I didn't take enough. Maybe they weren't even Etizolam. I don't really know what the situation was, because I was stupid and didn't test anything. Now, at this point, after the initial come-up, I kind of blacked out for a little bit. I was really fucking lit. I was feeling good. At first, when I was starting to come up, I was like, okay, this feels a little strange. Honestly, it was like a blackout Molly roll. If I could describe it well, you know, like those are the best terms I could put. It was a blackout Molly roll. It was like being drunk, high, and rolling at the same time. It was such a strange experience, but also like I feel like I've never lost memory off that little of a dose. Like Xanax, you could feed me enough to kill an elephant, and I could still do math equations, right? This shit ruined me, absolutely destroyed. And I don't think I did anything that insane, except the following day, I woke up and my ex-girlfriend from high school, this girl who I had a very on and off thing with when I was younger, was back up in my text messages talking to me again. And I did not remember initiating that, but I do remember being horrified upon finding that and immediately just blocking on everything again. I don't know what I was thinking during that blackout period, but something happened and I reached out and made contact with somebody I shouldn't have. I did something I shouldn't have. It was like a North Korean soldier crossing the DMZ, fleeing. I should not have gone there. I should not have done that. I did something I should not have done, okay? I was in uncharted lands that I didn't belong in. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, so let's go back to the day. So I kind of blacked out for a little bit. I have even, back then, I don't think I ever remembered the period after the come up, but I do remember a bit later into it. Because I remember, listen, all right? This is a little fucking embarrassing, but I'm just going to keep it a buck, all right? I had all my fucking windows open. I had my fucking fan going. My house had no heat or air conditioning, mind you. I had all my windows open, and I had my fan propelling the window through the house because I just remember the fucking cool breeze was amazing from outside. It was in Illinois, and it was like the first part of the year, right? It was like January or February at this point. So the breeze, it could not have been warm. I don't know what the temperature was. I'm not Tom Skilling. I'm not a fucking reporter. But what I can tell you is it must have been chilly. And I was loving the breeze. And I remember I am literally just walking through my house in my boxers, breeze blowing. I have all the windows open. I have like this tweaker airflow contraption set up with a fan pointing away from one window. I had a few objects set up guiding air into my fucking computer room, and I'm sat at my computer fucking vibing. At some point, I went up from the living room and I guess reestablished contact with my ex. I don't recall doing that. I'm very thankful that she lived very far away at this point, because if she lived closer, things could have been far worse. Listen, she didn't deserve my excellence, okay? I know my self-worth. I'm a king, all right, ladies and gentlemen? I know. I'm high. I'm upper echelon, all right, on the tier list, all right? My excellence, it's not for her. Not for her. But either way, I started coming down, and it was a very slow come down. And I don't even know if I'd call it a come down, because I'm still really buzzing and feeling very amazing all the way until I went to sleep. This, like, the effects of this lasted all goddamn day. And I remember the following day, I even woke up and had a bit of an afterglow where I was like, wow, I still feel a little funky. I feel a little light. I feel a little goofy, you know? I feel a little silly. This was one of those instances where, honestly, I'm kind of glad I don't remember it better, because if I do remember the enjoyment I was having, I probably would have gone back and done this substance again. And listen, it's one thing to do the name brand drugs that are everywhere and there's a lot of research on. It's a whole nother beast to start fucking around with Etizolam and all the alternate shit that's much less known. That's where you get very questionable. And the thing about the area I lived at this point in my life is most of the people that I met down here were really into these weird research chemical drugs because they were cheap. They were the best bang for your buck. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, you know, this wasn't a very wealthy area. It was pretty rough, except for the politician side of town. So everyone was doing crazy shit. Meth was huge. Xanax was huge because it was cheap, you know? The research chemicals. I bumped into a lot of people at random functions and just meeting people who were doing crazy shit, who were doing drugs that put me to shame. Dude, like these guys made me look sober. These guys made me look like Dr. Drew. But either way, you know, I was chilling and I came down very slowly. And listen, I'm not going to lie. I think this is an important part of substance. Listen, I did yank my hog on this substance, all right? I'm not going to go into detail, you know? If you want to picture that in your head, you sure can. What I will tell you is it was a really great time on this drug. It was really enjoyable. It was a primal experience. I'd even go as far as to say. But either way, I think we're going to wrap it up there without going into further detail. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Drop a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces, everybody. Also, follow me on Instagram. Get me to 100K, please. I love you. Deuces.